The Aesthetic by ContraPoints came out on 19th of September 2018, so it's been like a year and a half. But you know, it's a topic of conversation because, well, I mean, it's not really a topic of conversation. I'm making it a topic of conversation. I'm inflaming all of the conflict and contradictions around this. So essentially, I, as a non-binary person, felt very differently about The Aesthetic than a lot of other people did. It came out the day after your egg cracked. Oh my goodness. That's very funny. But it's a video that people still bring up as a thing that they really didn't like about Natalie's work. So I just wanted to come in and take a few minutes to, by a few minutes I mean probably like an hour, to just watch it and pause it and discuss it with you in chat. Yeah, let's just get into it. Boing. And if the volume or anything is good or bad, let me know. Have chat, and I'll be able to see.
One or more adjacent colors, while complementary schemes use any two colors directly
That Dan
opposite
Olsen.
on the color wheel.
Hi girl, I'm Tracy Mounts, guest host of ContraPoints, the internet show where we talk about sadness, fascism, sexual deviation, cults. This week, we'll be talking about colors. Colors. What the fuck are they? In one beaker I have white, and the other brown. Pour them together, and wow, I don't know what the kids are calling it. It's delicious. Now, according to some so-called
coffee,
experts,
that reminds me.
color is really different wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. But what about the shadow illusion?
You know, we're just gonna sit
Wavelengths,
through the fun
different
parts.
colors. Some people say I'm a man dressed as a lady, but I'm actually a lady who used to be a man dressed as a man dressed as a lady. Explain that, Professor Butler. Illusion. What matters more, the way things are or the way things look? Let's watch an instructional video to learn more.
Oh my god, how could you live with those eyelashes? This particular framework in her shows is very funny to me.
I'm Jackie Jackson.
The Freedom
host of
Report.
The Freedom Report. It's too early for this. Today, my guests are, well, who are you people? I'm Dr. Abigail Cockbane, Associate Professor of Women's Studies and author of many, many books. Most recently, my doctoral thesis, Sacred Passage, The Divine Feminine in Flux and Flow. Oh, yes. And, well, you look familiar. Who are you?
Yeah, remember Abigail? I kind of unironically love Tabby. I'm gonna be totally honest.
Okay, well, today my guests will be debating the topic. Well, here's a good one. Should it be illegal to use the wrong pronouns for a transgender? What are you?
Yes, no. I mean, this is like automatically put me in a silly mood, and I don't need to be in a silly mood. It's just a funny intro to the video. I don't know.
What do you think, Annabelle? Well, Jackie, liberation from the oppressive institution of gender begins with freedom of speech. For instance, this cat person over here is clearly a biological male in some sort of costume wig. Now, I of course support his right to dress however he wishes, but the fact remains that pronouns refer, as they always have referred, to chromosomal sex.
We all know that this is vacuous and ridiculous, right? That Ben Shapiro argument. I'm sorry, I just wanted to take a small second. I hate it. I hate it a lot. All right.
But perhaps you disagree, sir.
Sir. Oh my god, rip.
That's a human rights violation! I'll smash your fucking face. And here we have a clear illustration of the way that transgender ideology...
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of
is
commentary
merely
that you can
a
do
smokescreen
during
for
this
male
part.
violence against women. And mind
It's
you, this is
the
being
sort of
taught in
introduction
schools.
framework
Forced
for the
on
rest of the
children.
video.
It's becoming mandatory in every have this cat removed. Are being silenced, and something must be done about the encroaching trans agenda, taking away women's rights, invading women's spaces, depriving us of what feminism has worked so hard. I love a kitty queen, but Abigail clocks a cat. Gender's just like color. Some people see yellow, some people see blue.
Okay, I don't think this is Natalie's equivalent of shitposting. I think that a lot of what Natalie does is shitposting. Like, especially when she's characterizing a TERF or a Nazi. Like, her character, Freya, is it's just all shitposting, but I love it. That's part of why I like her content in the first place. Like, I love H-Bomber Guy. He's a shitposter. I love Natalie. She's kind of a shitposter. Not all the time, but a decent portion of the time.
It's all a matter of opinion, or is it? It's not. Let's hear the real tea.
The dress. Okay. Someone whose brother is a Ben Shapiro fanatic enormous sigh. Oof, I am very sorry for you. Okay, this is where the discussion actually begins.
Tabby, sweetie, baby, princess. I feel ridiculous in this dress. Yeah, well, you look ridiculous, because you wouldn't take the goddamn cat ears off. I think I'm gonna take the dress off. Well, don't do that. I'm trying to help you out, girl. If you don't want to get misgendered, it helps to femme it up a little. I'm gonna take...
Okay, so this is basically where we're getting into the meat of the part that people find disagreeable about this video. As a retrospective commentary, Natalie pointed out when she made her video Cancelled that when she made this video The Aesthetic, she wasn't actually really thinking about non-binary people. She's very much having this dialogue as a binary trans woman talking to another hypothetical binary trans woman about how they will attempt to move through the world, right? And so it's this idea that, oh, you know, you're not trying hard enough. I think people got that impression off of this, and that is what this is. We're setting up a dialectic between, like, Tabby and Justine. Like, these are two different points of view that are being exercised through this conversation.
Take it off. Well, don't leave. You can change in front of me. I'm not a prude. I'm gonna go behind the curtain.
I will say, I think that Justine is the closest thing to a self-insert character for Natalie when she's doing these videos where she's playing a character that doesn't necessarily represent her. I think Justine is like the embodiment of a lot of Natalie's actually core insecurities. And that's, we're kind of getting to a point where I'm like speculating about what's going on in her mind, which I guess is, I mean, people do that to her all the time, so I'm doing it charitably. I'm not gonna lie about the fact that I'm doing that, but especially because of little moments like this, where Justine's character is expressing attraction towards Tabby, it's definitely rings like, Natalie, you knew. Girl, you knew.
I like looking at naked people.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you always hit on me? I thought you were into men. Well, I swing both ways. I like boy dick and girl dick. That's not how that works.
That's one of my favorite things that she's ever said in a video, by the way. The two genders, girl dick and boy dick.
I hate that. The heart wants what it wants. Why did you invite me over here anyway? I saw what happened to you on the Freedom Report, and girl, you cannot be a trans woman on TV threatening people with a bat. You think it's morally wrong to stand up to your oppressors? No, morally wrong. What does that even mean? It was much worse than morally wrong. It was aesthetically wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It was unfeminine.
Unfeminine.
This is all you ever say to me. It's bad optics. It's bad aesthetics. Well, does reality matter at all to you? Because the reality is I am a woman. And maybe a bunch of ignorant people don't think I look like one, but the way things look isn't all that matters. Tabby, this is politics. Have you ever had a conversation with the average voter? Reality plays no role in politics. Politics is aesthetics.
So, first of all, I want to point out that Natalie as a creator is voicing and acting both of these roles. So, one of the things that I have found kind of confusing about people's approach to this video and a lot of her other videos is that because of the fact, I think, that a lot of people view Justine as the self-insert character, they tend to view... I know, it's because... I keep pausing the video. I'm sorry, Pyriff. because Justine seems to be the self-insert character insofar as there is one in Natalie's videos, I think people tend to see the Justine character as representing Natalie's true core beliefs, but what's actually happening is that Natalie is advocating for both sides in a dialogue, right? Basically, we're getting into talking about performativity as legitimacy, I guess. Not exactly. It's basically saying here that, you know, you can say you're a woman, but what does that practically mean if people in society don't grant you that because you don't seem intuitively to be a woman or whatever? Justine could be kind of I don't know that it's her actual core beliefs. I think it's really more of an expression of her insecurities, or her doubts. It's really hard to say. Oh my god, by the way, is that the golden one? No, I don't think that's the golden one. It would not surprise me if she had a picture of him on this wall, though.
Politics is aesthetics? That's literally what fascism is. Have you even read Benjamin? Fascism is the introduction of aesthetics into political life.
Mm-hmm.
Military parades, the pageantry, and communism responds by politicizing art. This is what I can't stand about communists. You want to turn art into propaganda. Well, art is already
propaganda.
Look, instead of ruining art, why don't we fight the pageantry of fascism with pageantry of our own? And you know who's going to make that happen? Who?
Well-funded queers.
Ew. Stop that. What? I'm just trying to monetize a connected engagement community by strategically leveraging my content creator promotional media brand analytics. Is that so wrong?
Okay, so that part is tragically hilarious, and I will tell you why. I got the same fucking email that she did from Patreon at the same, like, I remember live when this came out, because I had just gotten that same email from Patreon that was like, oh, make sure you're, like, interconnecting all of your social medias and stuff. Like, that shit cracked me up.
You're so bougie. I'm not the one quoting German philosophers from memory. Revolutionary philosophers. Whatever you need to tell yourself. Look, the point I'm trying to make is that the world we live in is not a philosophical world. Think about Instagram. Yeah. It's all about transforming your life into an enviable spectacle. If you cry yourself to sleep every night, who cares? No one sees that. They only see the show you're putting on. Okay, but life is not a show. Politics is a show. Look around you, Tabby. Try to understand what's happening to the world. The President of the United States is a reality TV star. The 21st century is an aesthetic century. In history, there are ages of reason and there are ages of spectacle. And it's
this part
to know which you're in.
is very interesting.
Our internet is not ancient Athens. It's Rome. And your problem is you think you're in the forum when you're really in the circus.
This part is a little bit more generally speaking right now, just talking about the picture of politics and this, like, dichotomous framework between the fascist pageantry versus, like, the... It feels like she's making a both sides are equally bad argument. Funny you should say that, because I kind of agree. I think that that's usually what's happening in these videos, is, like, we're very dialectically opposed, but so this is actually I'm just gonna pause for a second with what I was about to say there to respond to that comment you just made, Sophie, because the position that Justine is ostensibly representing here is actually the opposite of true scum transmed. It's actually performativity theory, which is like this idea that it's nothing to do with any medical treatment or, like, passing a identity threshold. It's basically saying, like, if you're out in the world being a woman performing this role and people are granting you that social role, then you are a woman, which is flawed in a lot of ways. But that's one of the things that I've been kind of confused about with people accusing her of being a true scum, because performativity theory is, like, just totally in opposition to transmedicalism. You cannot hold both of those ideologies at the same time. Oh, you're saying Justine is making a both sides are equally bad argument. Okay, I understand. But what I was saying a minute ago is that this conversation in particular, the broader conversation of the aesthetic of we live in an age of aesthetic being more important than high-minded conversation, and like you think you're having this philosophical discussion, but actually you're in the circus. It is interesting and scary because there are a lot of things aesthetically in the United States that are, it's like, oh, authoritarianism, but it's also just, like, I feel that it's pretty true. A lot of things are based on your appearance, you know, you receive racism based on how dark your skin is, you know, like even like light-skinned black people have less trouble than darker-skinned black people. Like you can see it happening where the visual of the situation has like a great impact, and that's why PR is so important. Oof, big oof, my dude. Goodbye. A lot of things really are based on appearance, and I don't argue for performativity theory, but I just think it's a fascinating conversation to be had, and I think that it's got a lot of merit to it.
I thought you were just criticizing me for being violent. Now you're against reason, too? I'm not against reason.
You're against reason, too?
It's a very powerful aesthetic. If you're a man.
If you're a man.
If you're a woman. Oh, don't be a woman. That's not a good idea. Ow. Do you remember that debate between Blair White and that YouTuber with the pink wig? What was her name? I don't know.
This
She
is
was
very
relevant
meta.
Back in 2017. Anyway, this was before she transitioned. And in that debate, Blair looked like she had 2 X chromosomes, and the other one looked like this awkward dude
I remember
in an
that.
anime wig, not looking at the camera. I vaguely remember. I think I wrote an angry blog post about it. Well, the pink wig lost that debate so bad. It was embarrassing to watch. Not really. I mean, she was right, and her arguments were better. Tabby. Sweetie, honey, angel, darling, princess, baby. Arguments don't matter. How pretty you are matters. Is this really where you're going with this? Tabby.
I don't actually think that this is categorically wrong. She does do meta amazingly. I don't think that's categorically wrong, because a lot of people will listen to Blair White when they would not listen to a woman that they found unattractive. If there was, like, Blair White as a transgender woman has, like, the power of cis people's ear because she passes. Because she's had work done. Like, she's had her FFS. She has greater legitimacy because she is completely normatively feminine. She goes for that bimbo aesthetic, so she's overemphasizing her sexual characteristics now. It's like, it's shit. It's absolute shit. And I'm not saying that it's right, but it's true. That people who are pretty and people who are white and people who are cis or look cis have more legitimacy in greater societal conversations. It's very shitty, but it's true. Oh, shit, didn't mean to do that. All right, here we go.
If you want to be a public figure, sooner or later, you're gonna need to take the trans girl black pill. Oh boy. If you're a trans woman in the public eye, what matters is one thing and one thing only. And it's always been the thing that matters. What? The realness.
The realness.
Verisimilitude. You have to look like a fucking woman. There it is. There it is right. We don't say it in public, but we all know it, and we all feel it. What is it even?
Okay. This is the point at which I am not a trans woman, and so there is, like, a limited amount of commentary I can make on this. But I've seen some of the anxieties that trans women have, and I think that this is one of those moments where people got mad at her for saying the quiet part out loud, which is that a lot of people do feel like their gender is only granted legitimacy through this performativity, you know? I'll have to watch that, Mia Mulder's How to Pass as a Woman.
I didn't mean to look like a woman. Oh, don't give me that PC bullshit. I'm trying to have a real conversation here.
Okay, and this is also another thing. You know, what does look like a woman even mean? Like, explain that to me. Like, don't play games. We all know. what this means. And it's unfortunate that this is the framework we live in, and it would be nice to break this down and be able to have a societal structure in which it's like your identity as a woman or a man or whatever is not, you know, it has nothing to do with your appearance. I don't think that that's true. I don't think it's true that you could never pass perfectly. Especially in the instance where, like, I know like an 11-year-old who's a trans girl who is on hormone blockers who will never have any of the effects of testosterone puberty, you know? I'm not saying that it's not uncommon. You know, I realize that it's expensive to pass, but it's not impossible. But there is legitimacy to this as well. And I'm not agreeing necessarily that it's correct, but yes, like, most people are not going to be like, reflexively, I'm going to feel like you are a woman if you just don't pass. Like, if you're totally pre-everything, as our current system is right now, that's just, like, people have a reflexive feeling about, oh, you're a gender, and, like, it's shitty, but it is a thing that people do. I do it. I've, like, intuitively, I feel like this person is X, Y, or Z. And I mean, that happens for me with trans women who are very early in their transition as well. I like, very quickly, I'm intuitively like, oh, yeah, you're a woman. Like, you have that feminine feel. Like, as soon as I know that about you, it doesn't take very long for me to switch that. But it is still an intuitive, like, it's the pattern matching software that your brain runs that looks for faces. And it's part of what you're looking for in the face, that you have this framework that you grew up with that you have no choice but to apply. I will watch Mia Mulder's video. I mean, I should watch her anyway. I keep hearing good things about her.
We all know what it means. I don't know what it means. Women have a lot of different looks. There are bald women, bearded women, muscular women, wide-shouldered women. And what is society's opinion about those bald, bearded, wide-shouldered women? Is this just about you making me wear the dress again? The dress is the last of my concerns. I mean,
it is definitely, like Natalie is about to make the point, but those women who are cisgender women who don't conform to femininity are marginalized for their gender expression. They absolutely don't get the same benefits of womanhood that a cisgender feminine woman does.
You're wearing combat boots. You cannot be wearing combat boots. Why not? A lot of cis women wear them. Cis women? Well, they're hopeless, aren't they? Fully clockable.
Cis women, fully clockable. Like, that's absurd. Deliberately absurd. Like, cis women? You can't follow cis women. Fucking fully clockable. It's meant to be kind of absurd.
Cis women. Yes. Do not under any circumstances imitate cis women. They have no idea what they're doing.
They have no idea what they're doing.
Where does your idea of womanhood even come from then? Das ewige Weibliche, the archetype of the eternal feminine. And where does that come from? Poets. Teenage gay boys on Instagram, the only people with any coherent vision of contemporary womanhood. That's insanity, is it? Tabby, look at my face. Look at this highlight. Does that look like the product of insanity to you?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, kind of. Who puts on that much makeup to drink tea at home? Good banter, well done. But trans women have to overdo it. You need to be so good at makeup that every cis woman you know comes to you for advice. You need to toss your hair and cross your legs. You need to smile even at people who hate you. Eliminate every aggressive impulse. You must be a blossom floating along the surface of a stream. Your hands are not tools. They're ornaments
at the end of your arms.
So you literally are what TERFs think trans women are. Literally a man's idea of a woman. Well, men have the power, men make the rules, and it's ultimately men who are the judges of womanhood. So you can't really blame me for having to deal with that situation.
I think that's absolutely something to consider as well, that trans women in large part have no choice but to perform this in order to avoid violence. Part of what Mia said is that trans awareness has people now going trans at minor tells or perceived tells, where 10 years ago it was easier to pass. Yeah, that's true. I've seen on Twitter where people are doing, like, people are looking at you know, like, Michelle Rodriguez, I think is the actress's name, and being like, oh, look at this in her face, she's definitely trans, you know? I've seen those. Shit, I was in the middle of something. What was it? Hold on, I'm gonna take this back like 20 seconds to figure out where I was.
Not tools. They're ornaments at the ends of your arms. So you literally are what TERFs think trans women are. Literally a man's idea of a woman.
Okay.
Well, men have the power, men make the rules, and it's ultimately men who are the judges of womanhood. So you can't really blame me for having to deal with that situation.
Yeah, I would say in this instance, what it seems like is sort of this, it's almost a rationalization, saying like, I mean, like, you really just have no choice but to try to fit us like a standard of womanhood, and it's usually the ideal standard of womanhood, in order to reduce and eliminate any possibility that you'll be clocked, because it's necessary for your survival. If you get clocked on a regular basis, you know, you're not going to be able to live functionally. So it's, I've seen a lot of women get FFS, not because they really felt like they needed to change their face because of dysphoria, but because they felt that they needed to change their face so that they wouldn't be confronted with violence in their lives. So these pressures exist outside of our control, and it's really unfortunate, but that is the world that we live in, where the legitimacy that you are granted by society is partially dependent on your performativity of the role. And it is, yeah, it kind of is. It's Tabby calling out Justine for falling for that trap. But, I mean, I don't even know if it's a trap so much as it's just like a recognition of the reality that trans women have to navigate through.
Situation. I can blame you for dealing with it by demanding we all conform to a bunch of ridiculous stereotypes.
This is absolutely poignantly fair, though. It's not, like, if Justine feels the need to do this performativity, that's fine, but it is wrong of her to be saying that every trans woman has to do this, or it somehow hurts the overall legitimacy of the group. I don't know that that's necessarily something that Justine advocates for in this video, but I agree with Tabby on this fully.
Not stereotypes, performances. You like philosophy so much, haven't you read Judith Butler? Gender is performance. We're all born naked, and the rest is literally drag. Womanhood is not what you are, it's what you do. And trans women have to be virtuosas of womaning. So according to you, there's no difference between a trans woman and a drag queen. Now, you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I don't mean performance in the sense of pretending to be something you're not. I mean performance in the sense of everything you do, the way you style yourself, your posture, the way you speak. An authentic performance is just a habitual performance, nothing more than that. So trans women just starting their transition are pretending to be women? I mean, isn't that kind of what it felt like? You transition the same way you get anywhere in life. You fake it till you make it. So according...
Thank you for saying that, Sophie. Thank you for saying that, because it's... Yeah, I'm sorry, but I have a lot of feminine mannerisms that are just a product of the way that I grew up, and I have to put that shit away if I want to pass as a dude. Sorry, but it's the actual fucking fact of the matter, and it's voice training as well. I could voice train and get rid of this like buzzy resonance, but it would take practice, and it's unnatural while I'm practicing it. I would have to practice it so much that it became no longer a thing that I'm going out of my way to practice doing. It takes time and effort to study the mannerisms of a social role that you've not had before, and like try to embody something that you're like, this is an ideal. And a lot of the time I will absolutely say that it's an ideal, and you're like, oh my god, I have to meet like this extremely high level of performativity, and eventually you realize that you don't have to do that all the time, and that the hypervigilance is actually hurting you more than it's helping you. But I do think that this is something that has legitimacy, and again, it's one of those things that I think people got upset about because it's saying the quiet part out loud. It's stating out loud an insecurity that a lot of people have. A lot of people feel like they're faking their gender when they're first entering that social role. And people don't like to have that insecurity put out there for people to see. Yeah, no, you're totally fine, Sophie. I appreciate just having a little bit of dialogue going. It interrupts the flow and, keeps me from going off too long on tangents.
According to you, a trans woman is just a full-time drag queen. That's what any woman is. What about gender non-conforming cis women? They're not doing womanhood in that way. Well, yeah. That's why those women are marginalized. They're going off the grid of what society recognizes as woman.
Sorry, I paused so that I could read this comment. Okay, thank you. I think that's why people tell me I'm non-binary goals. Okay, I'm gonna take this back a second.
Like, you transition the same way you get anywhere in life. You fake it till you make it. So according to you, a trans woman is just a full-time drag queen. That's what any woman is. What about gender non-conforming cis women? They're not doing womanhood in that way. Well, yeah. That's why those women are marginalized. They're going off the grid of what society recognizes as womanhood.
And they're punished for it.
Like that, do you? And hold on, are you saying that if a cis man dresses like a woman, talks like a woman, takes female hormones, is gendered female by other people, and spends his whole life pretending to be a trans woman, that he's literally as much of a woman as we are? Yep. That's absurd. But it's absurd because the example is absurd. No cis man would do that. It's like asking, is a straight...
Just one quick second. There absolutely are cis men who do this, and it's weird. It's weird. But they also don't usually claim to be women. They usually say like they're femboys or something like that. I've seen it. Again, it's weird. But I mean, at a certain point, what is the practical difference between a cis man who takes hormones and performs femininity and goes out and is treated like a woman, and a trans woman who does all those same things? Like, practically, there's not a big difference that you can see. All you would be able to go off of in that case is one of them says, like, yeah, I'm actually a woman, and the other one says, like, no, I'm a man, but I just like to look like this. Like, A, I don't understand it, but B, practically there's no difference. How is it saying trans lesbians aren't valid, though? Yes, yeah, that's what I mean. The issue in the Discord server. Like, there is a difference to the self, but what I'm saying is that practically, like, in actual practical life, what is the difference? Hold up, who is that? Thank you for the follow. I appreciate. And the example is absurd, because generally a cis man wouldn't do that, but they do. And then at that point, really, what is the difference? I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit of a reach, Sophie.
Straight man gay if he only sleeps with men. Like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, this. Yeah, see, that too. Like, okay, like, if a straight man only has sex with men, what is the practical difference between that straight man and a gay man? There's not. Like, there's just practically no difference, except that one of them is fucking people that they're not attracted to, but their behavior is identical. I think they do. I think the femboy that we had an issue with recently, I think that they do take hormones.
This is a philosophy at its worst, pointless speculative fiction, and it's a distraction from what we're really talking about, which is you getting rid of those combat boots. I thought we were talking about philosophy. No, we're talking about shoes. I always have to justify what I wear to you. You're apparently fine wearing designer dresses around your communist friends. The left will abide a regal queer. Look, your performance theory doesn't explain why trans people exist in the first place. If gender is just a bunch of learned behaviors, then why did we reject our male upbringing and decide to live as women? What matters is that we identify as women. We can express that identity in different ways, but it's the identity, not the performance, that makes us women. But you can't be a woman without performing womanhood. Without action and without social recognition, the identity is meaningless. If womanhood is nothing to you but a private daydream, then you may as well do what those assholes say and identify as a helicopter, because unless you're living womanhood, the identity is literally that meaningless. That's very unfair to pre-transition trans people. Well, this isn't a Tumblr cuddle party, girl. I'm trying to talk about what's really true.
Okay, so this is another one of those places where I'm sure people had a lot of trouble with it. I'll come out and say before I even get into it that I see both sides and I agree a little bit with both sides, and I also think both sides are a little bit wrong. Yeah, no, you're fine, Sophie. You're good. I do think that it is an important tangible reality, as they're about to discuss, that you hold in yourself your identity, right, as like a woman or whatever. But there is also the practical situation where if people can't see that about you, how much does your womanhood tangibly exist? If something, if you just, it's just something that exists in your mind until you start to transition, which doesn't make it less real or less valid. It just means that it's not going to be validated. And I think that is the crux of this conversation. The crux of this conversation is actually that your womanhood is yours, but we also live in a society, and there are practical barriers to being recognized as a woman if you don't perform womanhood.
I didn't say it was insensitive. I said it was unfair. Identifying as a woman before you transition is a psychological reality.
It is.
That implies a
Again, I totally agree with
to live
Tabby.
your inner truth. No one has ever sincerely identified as a helicopter. It's just a troll example. True. But even if they were sincere, there would still be no reality to it, because helicopter is not an actual social role. Whereas, you can become a teacher, a doctor, or a woman, but you have to work to get there, and ultimately, society has to let you. What do you mean? I can identify as a doctor and go around handing out diagnoses, but if no one recognizes me as a doctor, then I'm not really practicing medicine, am I? But that analogy means that our womanhood can be revoked at any moment. All it takes is being misgendered. It's scary, but isn't that the situation we're in? Why did you get so angry when that TERF called you sir? Isn't it because, in that situation, she robbed you of your womanhood? That's ridiculous. I am a woman. That's my reality. It doesn't depend on other people's opinions. I know you're a woman. I'm just saying that in that one moment, you effectively had your gender canceled. Another way of looking at it is gender is aesthetic, not rational.
I'm going to pause before letting her finish her sentence there, because
I know you're a woman. I'm just saying that in that one moment, you effectively had your gender canceled.
That right there. Okay. I was really hurt the first time I watched this video and heard this part. So this is really where I come in, and like this is where I'm saying, like, as a non-binary person, like, that shit's true. I'm sorry. But that is true. Cis people have the power to cancel your gender. It's shitty, but it's true. If someone clocks me as a girl, and then they go and tell someone else, like, oh, I met this girl, they can just revoke my gender. And as a non-binary person, there is no recognized social gender role for me. I live in a society where my existence as a gendered person is constantly erased and eliminated and invisible. And it is structurally difficult to deal with. So this is, again, one of those things where, like, I'm sorry that our feelings got hurt by this statement of fact, but that's actually the like, situation that we live in. You can have your legitimacy as a woman, or whatever, revoked. If a cis person, it's okay. So think about for a second that people will misgender someone they don't like. People will misgender Caitlyn Jenner because they don't like her as a person. That is cis people saying, you only get to be your gender as long as I say it's okay. And I have the power to take that shit away from you if you step out of line. And again, I'm sorry. But that's true. That's the world we live in. And it's hurtful, and it sucks, and it's painful. But it is what it is. I'm so very sorry. Like, again, as a non-binary person, I have to constantly try to fit into a social role that I don't want to fit into because there isn't an existing social role for me, and because it is a lot easier for me to pass as male than it is to try to assert validity for my non-binary identity in a society that does not grant me legitimacy. And that's painful, and it's difficult, and it's one of the things that I think people have the hardest time with about this video, but it's not Natalie's fault for bringing light to that situation. She didn't create the situation, and I think it's really obnoxious that people got so upset with her for pointing out that this is just what it is to be a non-passing trans person. There is no such thing as passing as non-binary. Sorry.
Another way of looking at it is gender is aesthetic, not rational. Either you're perceived as a woman or you aren't.
Yeah.
There's no reasoning your way into it. But don't worry about that. I don't argue I'm a woman. I smash. I know you do, and it's a bad look. Is this about the shoes again? Yep. Here, put these on. Absolutely not. I'm not wearing those. Yes, you are, bitch.
Taking a break from the seriousness for
on,
a little bit of a fashion show.
Scratch you behind the ears later. Okay, fine. Now walk.
Ugh. Poor Tabby. Yes, here comes the filth, absolutely.
That was the worst thing I've ever seen. Well, you're the one who made me do it. Look, don't stomp around like that. Keep your shoulders back and steady. All the movement comes from your hips.
Alright, hold on. We're gonna pause this for a second and look at chat for a minute, because I ignored a couple messages there. I mean, it kind of is, like, canceling the social role of a doctor. I mean, but the difference is that social legitimacy of a doctor is granted by a medical establishment. Like, if I were to go see an acupuncturist or something, that person only has legitimacy as a medical provider so long as we acknowledge acupuncture as something that has medical value. If society switches, as it should, to the idea that acupuncture is not medically sound, then those people are no longer socially a doctor. It's kind of similar, actually. But like, an accredited doctor has more power than you in that situation, and I agree with Jess on that. It is a power dynamic thing where cis people have the power over your gender, basically. Yeah, we miss Tabby. We all miss Tabby.
On the balls of your feet. Here.
Yeah, okay. That is it, though. You're a woman, kind of. Is that not the exact situation?
I'll show you.
Yeah, the dynamic movement. I agree, Hoot. It's a tiny little detail.
Your turn.
There's another one.
Do it right. The category is
Cat girls. I do love this, though. This is cute, and Tabby is adorable, and I love her. Like, I don't disagree with most of Tabby's points.
That was
you know?
flawless. It was iconic. I'm living for this.
Smash,
I'm
but
loving
make it
this
cute.
video. You're doing so good for yourself. I'm never doing that again. Why not? Because it's not who I am. All your advice is just trying to turn me into you. Well, that's not what aesthetics is. Aesthetics is the expression of an inner truth, and I'll only ever be a second-rate Justine, but I can be a first-rate Tabby.
That's some shit that gives me, like, a tingle sometimes, because I think that's a really strong statement. I don't know.
Well, kids, this week we learned a valuable lesson about the importance of being yourself. Shut up! Look, I know I'm not cool, okay? I know I'm not pretty. And I know you think you're too good for me because you mostly pass. And I know you and your friends laugh at me behind my back. People stare at me because I'm a transgender furry and that's weird. But I'm a fucking queer icon because I'm not like you. Because I'm not like anyone but myself. And because I'm willing to stand up to the people who oppress us. And I'm willing to stand up for the girls with beard shadow and deep voices. The girls even other trans women make fun of. And when, in the history of the world, has anyone but me ever stood up for them? That's why everyone knows who Tabby is. When was the last time anyone talked about Justine?
Oof.
Wow, Tabby, I didn't know you had that in you. But so what? So Mail to Anime Twitter stands you. Big deal. You're mad, aren't you? I'll get over it in a few weeks. Look, you're right. You have to be yourself. Trying to be someone else is always a bad look. So I guess if combat boots are your aesthetic, then wear them well and make it work. But sometimes being yourself is not enough. Sometimes you have to become yourself.
I don't think that's wrong at all. I mean, but we're all becoming ourselves, and it's not even a gendered thing necessarily.
And for you, I think that means that the smashing has got to stop. I mean, with the Nazis, it's one thing, but you cannot be menacing radical feminists with a bat. I wouldn't have to smash if literally anyone else were willing to stick up for us. Your delicate notion of femininity is a product of the privilege you share with a lot of thin, white, cis feminists. Wow, it must be so hard for you out on the streets as a fat woman of color. Shut up. I'm just saying, don't claim a struggle that isn't yours, girl. You could have what I have. You just have to work for it instead of playing this part of the tragic victim. You were raised a white boy. You got to go to college and learn all that philosophy. And yeah, it's hard being a trans woman of any background, but you still stand on a lot of privilege. I look at all the photos of trans women who are murdered in this country, and they don't look like you or me. Why don't you use your privilege and use your education to actually do some good in the world instead of this elective, revolutionary LARPing?
Hold on. I thought that the finding yourself part was, like, the before you transition part. I don't know. I personally have felt more like, I don't know, my transition is more about bringing the me that is here and putting it out there.
Make me sound like the self-indulgent one. I'm sorry I'm not hard-working enough to go to brunch dates and cocktail parties with transphobes. I've seen minds change and hearts soften before my eyes. You don't win friends and allies with a bat. They're just using you. Well, who do you think benefits, and who do you think gets hurt when you go out into the world and represent trans women as masculine and violent? Who do you think benefits when they trot you out to be feminine and meek and acquiescent? I guess we can't win, can we? You want to just chill out and watch YouTube videos? Yeah, okay.
Forget about the disrespect. Facts don't care about your feelings. It turns out that every chromosome, every cell in Caitlyn Jenner's body is male with the exception of some of his sperm
God,
cells.
Shapiro is
You
so
don't know
cringe.
what you're talking about. You're not educated on
Would you like
genetics.
us to discuss the genetics or
Well,
no? What are your genetics?
You cut that out.
But this is,
now.
like, one of the more
You go
important
home
parts of
and
the video.
Yeah, that seems mildly inappropriate for a political discussion.
You cut that out now, or you'll go home in an ambulance.
So I look at that and I feel like on my end, it's like I feel like I'm always damage controlling for the trans community, which is so frustrating.
You'll go home in an ambulance.
Damage controlling, so frustrating.
You'll go home in an ambulance.
Facts don't
Damage
care about your
controlling,
feelings.
so frustrating.
You'll go home in an ambulance.
It's imperative that we actually
So
use
frustrating.
terms that refer to something. If you want to talk about gender as distinct from sex, and then talk about you're a very feminine biological man, and you've had the surgeries to prove it, then I think that we can.
That
talk about
conversation
what
was,
is the
like,
appropriate
so
pronouns
close
use.
to
My problem is
breaking through, but
there-
Ben is so fucking dumb.
Tabby, I don't want to fight with you. We're surviving in this shit world together, and you'll always be my sister. Well, I'm glad. I love you. What? Love. I was in love once.
This is about to be silly bullshit again for a minute. Part of the reason why I wanted to address this is because Justine is shown to be wrong in the narrative of this video. They end that conversation with Justine being like, oh fuck, I'm policing your behavior and that is wrong of me to do. I think most people just get so overloaded by the previous conversation that they don't, you know, they don't even realize at the end that Justine is, like, apologetic, you know, and regretful.
I was in a smoky roadhouse outside Cincinnati, bent over a pool table. The year was 1985. And to this day, when the perfume of cheap whiskey hits my nostrils at just the right moment, I can almost feel the beer-stained billiard cloth against my cheek. Let's watch it all on VHS cassette to learn more.
I think this is the end. Yeah. Alright, So yes, those are my thoughts on the aesthetic. I hope that made sense. I don't know if people are going to care or agree or be able to watch it. But yeah, I've had all those thoughts for, you know, the year and a half. TLDR, Natalie's gay. I mean, TBH. But, like, it's very obviously to me, this particular era of Natalie's videos is an internal dialogue externalized. So I definitely view it as just someone trying to figure out how to argue for their legitimacy. I don't know. And again, I agree that there are painful truths in this video, but don't shoot the messenger. Why the fuck are people so angry with her over this? It was, I don't know. But hopefully that contextualizes things. Like, she wasn't really thinking of non-binary people when she made this video, but she has said things in the video that I think are extremely relevant to a non-binary experience. Yeah, she has also said since then, like, this video came during a period where she was trying to find a way to justify to a cis society that trans women are actually women, and she has come to realize that that is a fruitless endeavor. You just can't do that. So, yeah. And that does ultimately mean that Tabby is right. And Tabby was shown to be right during the video. Like Justine's shitty reaction to her saying, I'll only ever be a second-rate Justine, but I can be a first-rate Tabby. Like, Justine's disdainful response is clearly a bad thing. I don't know. It's not portrayed as a positive thing in the video. It's kind of like the Blair White stand-in character that we saw at the end of the Trans Trender video. That character is obviously antagonistic and incorrect. And Justine, at this stage, is still working through those things. So that could be a way to say, like, Natalie herself was still working through those feelings of, if I am not actually granted womanhood in my life as I exist in society, then what does my womanhood actually mean in this world? If it is only known to me and to people who believe me when I say that, then does it actually exist? Then, you know, like, these are big, difficult questions, and you could argue that it was wrong to be having those thoughts out loud when there are so many cis people who are laser focused in on what she says and will take things that she is saying in these videos as hard fact, even though, as we've pointed out multiple times, that was a dialogue between two characters, and there is supposed to be, it's not supposed to be representative of one single opinion that Natalie genuinely holds, per se. Yeah. Hi there. Thank you, patrons, especially The Gay Agenda, Tina M., R. Halverson, Elis Stewart, Alex Maskell, Sarah A., Gretchen Becker, Wellington Marcus, Amanda B., Athiet, Elizabeth Bartell, Pinesnake, and Mr. Atheist. Love you!